This video contains graphic descriptions of violence and disturbing content related to real-life events, which may not be suitable for all audiences. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome to our deep dive into some seriously spooky spots. We're going underground, exploring haunted caves across the U.S. We've got travel articles, listicles, first-hand accounts, the whole shebang. So get ready to uncover the stories and phenomena that make these subterranean labyrinths so fascinating.
You know, there's something inherently mysterious about caves, isn't there? The darkness, the enclosed spaces, the echoes. It's no wonder they've captured our imaginations, often as places where our world and something else, well, they kind of blur.
Yeah, like those echoes and shadows are holding on to something, some lingering energy or memory. And when you think about how old some of these caves are, millions of years old, it makes you wonder what they've witnessed.
Exactly. Take Mammoth Cave in Kentucky, the longest known cave system in the world, nearly 10 million years old. Yeah. Beyond its size, it has a fascinating history. Like back in the 1800s, it was used as a tuberculosis hospital.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Sadly, it failed. Patients, the doctor in charge, they all died from the disease.
Oh, how awful. So it's almost like that tragic history is woven into the caves itself. I mean, there are stories of people seeing apparitions in period clothing just vanishing. And then there's the story of Melissa.
Oh, Melissa.
This young woman who supposedly led her tutor into the cave and left him to die after he rejected her.
Some people believe her cries can still be heard, echoing through the caverns.
Really?
It adds another layer to the cave's eerie atmosphere, don't you think?
Definitely.
It makes you think, the interplay between actual historical events and how our minds, maybe fueled by the environment, might embellish them.
Yeah, like, is it a real echo, or are we filling in the gaps with the most dramatic explanation? It's chilling, either way. And then there's Floyd Collins, the caver who got trapped by a boulder back in the 1920s, died before they could reach him. Some say you can still hear his cries for help.
It's those stories that make caves so captivating, isn't it? Places of beauty and danger. Not just geological formations, but environments that test human resilience, sometimes end in tragedy. And those events, whether paranormal or just tragic echoes, they add a certain weight to our exploration,
Totally. It's interesting you mentioned human resilience because our next cave is as much a product of humans as it is nature. Robbers Cave in Nebraska, a network of man-made tunnels dating back to the 1860s. It was supposed to be a brewery, but became a hideout for outlaws.
Including Jesse James, right?
The one and only.
What's fascinating is that despite the businesses that have operated there, the hauntings stay consistent.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Visitors describe eerie laughter, disembodied screams, even drums and chanting, like some rituals happening just out of sight.
I don't think I'd spend a night there. Those sounds in that enclosed, dark space, no thank you. What is it about those sounds in a cave that freaks us out so much?
I think it's how our brains process sound in unfamiliar and potentially threatening places. Caves amplify and distort sounds, making it easy to misinterpret things. And those primal sounds, screams, chanting, they tap into our fear of the unknown.
Makes sense, like our imagination takes over. Okay, let's head to Tennessee, to a place steeped in folklore and legend, the Bell Witch Cave. Tons of spooky stories, and it's on the U.S. National Historical Registry. What makes this cave such a paranormal hotspot?
Well, it's linked to one of the most well-known hauntings in American history. John Bell and his daughter Betsy tormented by a malevolent entity for years. The Bell Witch.
Bell Witch.
Capable of physical assaults, threats, curses, the whole 9 yards.
And didn't President Andrew Jackson visit the farm?
Oh yeah, he was intrigued, spent one night there and hightailed it out of there.
Really?
Said he'd rather face the entire British Army than another night in that house.
So it's not just the farmhouse that's haunted. The cave, too.
Absolutely. Visitors report unsettling experiences. Kids' candles going out, phantom hands pulling a child from a hole, whispers of a disembodied female voice. Like the Bell Witch is everywhere.
Wow. It seems like each cave is more intense than the last. And speaking of intense, let's go to the West Coast. Moaning Cavern in California, known for the sound of air moving through its opening, though it's less pronounced these days.
Even without the moaning, it's still a mysterious place. California's longest vertical chamber, 165 feet deep, and at the bottom, human remains.
No way.
Prehistoric people, indigenous Americans, gold miners, oft presumed to have fallen to their deaths.
So many layers of history and maybe layers of energy. It's no wonder there are ghost sightings. Miners, indigenous American spirits, and one particularly scary apparition.
Chip.
Ah, Chip. Tell me about Chip. What makes this ghost stand out?
Well, imagine this. You're in a dimly lit cave and you encounter the ghost of a saber-toothed tiger
Oh, no, thank you.
with a chipped tooth, hence the nickname. It plays on our primal fear, right? Predators in the dark. Especially in a place with a history as rich and tragic as Moaning Cavern.
It's like the cave amplifies not just sounds, but also our deepest fears. It's fascinating how these sightings often connect to the history of each cave. Each one's a repository of memories. Like our next location, Cave Spring in Georgia, haunted by a little girl who died of scarlet fever and indigenous American spirits.
Right. Cave Spring is a natural spring that flows into a lake and pond, and the hauntings extend to the surrounding town and Rollator Park.
Rollator Park.
People see the little girl ghost as a faint mist, and then there are the indigenous American ghosts.
Which makes sense. Cave Spring was a gathering place for indigenous Americans for centuries.
For meetings, games, fresh water, their connection to the land seems to have lingered long after they were gone.
And that's where things get really interesting, right? Are these sightings paranormal or echoes of the past imprinted on the landscape?
It's a good question.
I've got goosebumps. We're just scratching the surface here. These caves offer a glimpse into a world where history, folklore, and the unexplained all come together.
And we've only just begun our descent. There are so many other haunted caves in the U.S., each with its own stories and mysteries waiting to be uncovered. We've got Cathedral Caverns, Devil's Den, Norton Creek Trail, so many more. It's true, there's a whole network of them out there, each with its own stories and mysteries. And speaking of networks, our next stop has a different kind of underground network, one woven from tales and legends, the New Jersey Pinelands.
Oh yeah, the Pine Barrens.
Exactly. A vast and often eerie expanse of forests and wetlands. And it's home to a creature deeply embedded in American folklore.
You're talking about the Jersey Devil, right?
The one and only.
That nightmarish combination of animal parts. Kangaroo-like body, head of a dog, bat wings, horns, forked tail.
It's said to roam the Pinelands, terrifying those who cross its path.
I read about the Batona Trail. 49 miles right through the heart of the Jersey Devil's territory. I don't think I'd be brave enough to hike that one. What is it about these cryptid legends that capture our imaginations?
It's fascinating, right? I think they tap into our primal fear of the unknown, especially in those wilderness areas that still hold a certain degree of mystery.
Places we can't fully control or understand.
Exactly. And the Jersey Devil, with its grotesque appearance and elusive nature, embodies those fears.
A symbol of the wild, untamed aspects of nature.
And these stories often serve as cautionary tales,
Reminding us of the potential dangers lurking in the shadows.
urging us to respect the power of the natural world.
It's interesting you bring up cautionary tales because our next stop takes us to a place where the alleged dangers aren't earthly, but extraterrestrial. Great Sand Dunes National Park in Colorado.
A supposed hotspot for UFO sightings.
I'm a bit skeptical about aliens, but I can't ignore the reports. Over 60 UFO sightings in and around the park. And then there are those cattle mutilations back in the 1970s.
Some believe they were connected to these alien visitors.
Right.
The cattle mutilations remain a mystery to this day.
A lot of theories, but no real answers.
And when you combine those unsolved cases with the numerous UFO sightings, it's easy to see why Great Sand Dunes has become a place of intrigue for those interested in the unexplained.
What stands out to you about the connection between these vast landscapes like deserts or sand dunes and the idea of extraterrestrial visitation?
I think it has to do with the sense of scale and isolation.
Right.
Those wide open spaces make us feel small, vulnerable, almost as if we're on the edge of something much larger than ourselves.
Yeah, like we're being watched.
And that feeling of insignificance maybe makes it easier to imagine otherworldly beings observing us, perhaps even interacting with us from a distance.
It's like our imaginations fill in the gaps created by the vastness. But let's get back underground. We've talked about caves formed by nature and caves carved by human hands. Now let's delve into a location where both natural and human forces have shaped a landscape imbued with a profound sense of history and loss. Antietam National Battlefield in Maryland.
The site of the single bloodiest day in American history.
Bloody Lane, a sunken road where thousands of soldiers perished, is said to be one of the most haunted spots on the entire battlefield.
Antietam is a place where the echoes of that tragic battle seem to reverberate through the landscape.
Visitors report hearing phantom gunfire, shouting, even singing.
As if the spirits of those who fought and died there are still reenacting the conflict.
Wow.
And it's not just auditory phenomena. There are accounts of apparitions, particularly Confederate soldiers, vanishing into thin air.
The thought of those ghostly figures trapped in that cycle of battle is both haunting and incredibly sad. It underscores the idea that these aren't just ghost stories.
They're connected to real events, real lives lost.
And the trauma of those events seems to linger, perhaps imprinted on the very soil itself. And the paranormal activity at Antietam isn't limited to Bloody Lane, is it?
Nope. Burnside Bridge, another key location in the battle, is also said to be haunted.
Okay.
People have reported seeing strange blue balls of light floating through the air, and there are stories of phantom drumbeats.
Like a spectral marching band.
Exactly. It's as if the energy of that day, the chaos, the fear, the sheer loss of life, somehow became embedded in the environment.
It's like these places become more than just historical sites. They become repositories of memory, grief.
And perhaps even the echoes of unresolved conflict.
But speaking of echoes, our next stop takes us back west to a place where echoes, both literal and figurative, seem to amplify the sense of mystery and unease, the Grand Canyon.
With its vast depths and breathtaking beauty.
It's also home to a particularly haunting legend, the Wailing Woman of the North Rim.
Ah, yes, the legend of the Wailing Woman. A tragic one. It's said that she lost her husband and son in a hiking accident back in the 1920s. Grief-stricken, she took her own life in a nearby lodge, and now she roams the transept trail, dressed in white with blue flowers, weeping for her lost family.
You know, it makes you wonder about the role of water in so many of these haunted tales.
Yeah.
Whether it's a lake, a spring, or even just dripping water in a cave, there seems to be a connection between water and the supernatural. Is there something inherently eerie about water? Or is it more about the context?
Water has always held deep symbolic significance in human cultures.
Of course.
It's a source of life, but it can also be destructive. It represents both purity and mystery.
I see.
And in these ghost stories, water often acts as a conduit,
A conduit.
a boundary between worlds,
Oh, interesting.
a symbol of the passage between life and death.
That's a really interesting point. It's like water becomes this liminal space, a place where the veil between our world and the spirit world feels thinner.
Precisely. And the stories associated with water often tap into our deepest fears, our anxieties about the unknown, about what lies beneath the surface.
And a perfect example of that is Grouse Lake in Yosemite National Park.
Grouse Lake.
Hikers on the Chilnualma Falls Trail report hearing this strange wailing cry coming from the lake.
A wailing cry.
Yeah, like a puppy in distress. But according to Native American folklore, that's the sound of an Indian boy who drowned in the lake calling out for help.
Oh, wow.
And the legend says that anyone who goes into the lake to help him will also be pulled under and drowned.
It's a classic cautionary tale, warning against the dangers of being lured in by something that seems innocent but hides a darker truth.
It ties back to that idea of water as a threshold, a place where the boundaries between the natural and supernatural worlds blur. You know, it's interesting how these stories often reflect our own human experiences, our fears, our grief, our fascination with the unknown. It's like we're projecting our own emotions onto these landscapes, imbuing them with a deeper meaning.
Exactly. These stories, whether we believe them literally or not, serve as a reminder that we're part of something much larger than ourselves, connected to the natural world, to the past, and perhaps even to the realm of the unseen.
We've explored caves formed by nature, carved by human hands, and shaped by the echoes of history. We've encountered creatures of legend, extraterrestrial phenomena, and the lingering spirits of those who came before us. And it's not just about the famous ones, right?
Right. Think about all the lesser-known caves and caverns, hidden away in forests, mountains, deserts, across the country.
Waiting to be discovered.
Each one holds the potential for its own stories and experiences.
It's like every cave is a blank canvas for our imaginations, a place to project our fears, our hopes, our longing for something more.
And you don't have to believe in ghosts to appreciate these stories.
That's true.
They offer a glimpse into our shared human experience, the ways we make sense of the unknown, the allure of mystery.
We've talked about Mammoth Cave with its echoes of tragedy and lost love.
Robbers Cave, shrouded in outlaw desperation.
And the Bell Witch Cave, where folklore and reality blend. These places resonate, whether we see them as haunted or just filled with the weight of history.
Think about those who sought shelter in caves throughout history.
Prehistoric humans, indigenous peoples.
Outlaws hiding from the law. Those experiences leave an imprint not just on the space, but on the stories we tell.
And it's those stories that connect us to something bigger, right? They remind us that we're part of a continuum,
A chain of human experiences stretching back through time.
Whether ghostly apparitions or echoes of past events, these narratives tap into our curiosity about what lies beyond.
It's that sense of wonder, that desire to explore the boundaries of what we know, that keeps us coming back to these haunted caves.
Literally and figuratively.
They challenge us, push us out of our comfort zones, and invite us to consider the possibility that there might be more to the world than we see.
So as we come out of this deep dive into haunted caves, we have one final question for you.
What draws you to the mystery of the unknown?
What stories resonate most deeply within you?
And what places, physical or metaphorical, make you feel connected to something bigger than yourself?
Explore those questions. Keep an open mind. And never stop seeking out those experiences that make you feel truly alive, even if they send a shiver down your spine.